Day 243 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I have never done a part 2 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, but I am still thinking about Jimmy Kimmel. I said yesterday I don't watch Jimmy, but Jimmy has a relationship with a host I have paid attention to since I was 17 years old. And that host is Howard Stern. Now, Howard is a person that I look up to more than I looked up to my own goddamn father. I began doing transcendental meditation 12 years ago because of Howard. I have not laughed more in my life because of one single person more than because of Howard. And I have been lucky to get an education since I was a teenager from the perspective of a Black woman named Robin Quivers because of Howard. Robin is one of the reasons that I revere Black women as much as I do, and she is a reason I believe that Black women should be running this nation. Last time around, we came pretty goddamn close. Every time the leader of the Trump administration tries to say that he won in a landslide, when the fact of the matter is he barely won by 1% and didn't even get 50% of the vote, it pisses me off. Jimmy and Howard happen to be very close friends, so I am sure that Jimmy has called Howard by now to get his take on what happened. As I said, I don't think Jimmy should have said jack shit about anything related to what happened in Utah. I know what he said and why he said it, but it didn't serve a purpose, and it wasn't even funny, so why bother? Howard, who has been famous throughout his career for going after people who go after him, has not said anything overtly political in my recent memory. Yes, he interviewed Joe Biden. Yes, he interviewed Kamala Harris. Yes, he jokes about how he is called woke. That's about it. The reason Howard doesn't go political is not because he's afraid of being fired. He wouldn't give a shit anyway. He just wants to sit in his basement and play chess and paint and play guitar. The reason he doesn't bring it up is because the whole show would become a political show, and that's not why people like me have tuned in for almost 40 years. It would be depressing, because right now, politics isn't funny. South Park, on the other hand, please continue to go scorched earth. It is what we demand, and it is what we expect. This has been part 2 of the Jimmy Kimmel situation. Signing off. Please ignore the Trump administration. Day 244, 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. There are 4 ways that you can extend your life, and they are pretty simple to do. 1 is not consuming alcohol. 2 is not smoking. 3 is not compromising sleep for other activities. 4 is not associating with toxic people. That 4th recommendation has to do with the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration. If you are a supporter and follower of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration, you are associating with toxic people. The leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration are people who spend their public life trying to make other people's lives miserable. Why do they do that? Because they get off on that. It is fulfilling to them. The reason that the leader of the Trump administration did not allow anyone in his current administration to be anything but a loyalist is because it is important to maintain and never question this pattern of behavior that may have arisen from a childhood devoid of affection, encouragement, and praise. I don't know exactly what went on behind the doors of the Trump household when he was a boy, but I can guarantee it may or may not have been some form of what I just described. This is how the American people became stuck in a situation where we have to deal with the trauma of the leader of the Trump administration and the blind loyalists he has gathered around him who are also suffering in similar ways. They call themselves the Trump administration. If we do not consume alcohol, if we do not smoke, if we do not compromise our sleep, if we stop associating with toxic people, then we will extend our lives. I need to listen to the song Asleep by the Smiths more often because compromising sleep is my personal problem. I do not drink or smoke or associate with toxic people. Imagine the possibility of gaining that kind of liberation by simply ignoring the Trump administration. Day 245 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. This week, the leader of the Trump administration says that he believes that it should be illegal to criticize him. He reminds me of crying Charlie Brown, except I actually feel bad for Charlie Brown. Specifically, the leader of the Trump administration believes that 97% of coverage about him is negative, and that should be illegal. Now, perhaps he has not considered that so much coverage of him is negative because he is a negative person who does negative things that should be covered negatively. I don't remember all of the fawning coverage for Charles Manson, although I suppose that the leader of the Trump administration did not send his followers to hurt people. Oh, wait a minute. Anyway, I am contemplating his assertion that it should be illegal to criticize him, not for the obvious reason that asserting such a thing is against the First Amendment to the Constitution guaranteeing free speech. I am contemplating it because it makes me think about his psychology and how wounded and hurt he must be to be so disliked while he is simply statistically a very popular person, considering the fact that he has tens of millions of loyal followers who would walk off a cliff for him. But on that same token, he is statistically very likely the most unpopular person on the planet. So it is no surprise that his wounded ego, wounded heart, and wounded soul desperately wants to find a way to halt the criticism that hurts him so deeply. Unfortunately, even if the criticism ceases in public, the criticism will never cease in private. Some people would like to receive criticism because it gives them an opportunity to grow and to change. But if you are a person like the leader of the Trump administration, and most likely the members of the Trump administration who have no interest in growing and changing and actually see criticism as a threat to the wall that such a person builds around themselves, then you do look to try to deepen your delusion by keeping anyone who might criticize you from doing so. I get it. I understand. But that does not mean that I accept his lack of self-examination, and so I must ignore the Trump administration. Day 246 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Howard Stern was back on the air today for the first time since Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air. And as I figured, yes, he and Jimmy did talk. Howard reminded us that he has been through this with the FCC himself because back in the 90s, the parent company he worked for was pressured by the FCC to fire Howard for what he was saying on the air. Howard talked about how his boss at the time would not back down to the government and would not fire him. It was a long battle, and Howard was scared. He had a young family at the time. He didn't know what was going to happen, but his boss assured him, I am not firing you, and this is wrong, and they persevered. Howard doesn't get political very much anymore, but I knew he would say something today because he and Jimmy are very close friends. It would be a glaring omission if if he did not. He went on to say this morning that enough is enough, that universities, law firms, broadcast networks, all of these organizations that are being pressured by the government to try to get them to bend to their will must fight back. And Howard said the best way to fight back is the way people are fighting back, which is to speak with their pocketbook. And he said on his show today that he is canceling his Disney Plus subscription. I think I should remind you that if you are a Beatles fan, the Beatles have a new multi-day special where they are releasing the remastered versions of the Beatles anthology documentaries on Disney Plus this Thanksgiving. And I'm sure Disney is expecting a lot of people to subscribe during that time to watch the Beatles. I was going to at least find a new email address for a trial subscription. I wasn't going to pay for it, but I'm not even doing that now. And people who can pay for it are unlikely to pay for it if they are protesting Disney. Late today, ABC announced Jimmy Kimmel was coming back tomorrow. Doesn't matter. The message needs to continue to be sent regardless. I am proud of Howard for standing by his friend. Just remember, this has happened before. It can happen again. No more capitulation. Ignore the Trump administration. Day 247 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I am just trying to help myself. Goo goo gaga. If you don't know what goo goo gaga means, it has nothing to do with queer icon and iconic queen Lady Gaga. Goo goo gaga is what people say when they're referencing how a baby talks. I don't like to use 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration to criticize the leader of the Trump administration in a purely derogatory way, but today is a day where I have to use baby talk. Goo goo gaga. Today, the leader of the Trump administration was embarrassing the United States overseas at the United Nations when he and the lady of the leader of the Trump administration, aka Melania, went to use the escalator. The escalator suddenly stopped. This made the leader of the Trump administration very, very upset. Goo goo gaga. Then later, when he was giving a speech in which he told all of the gathered nations that their countries were going to hell, another goo goo gaga moment happened. Apparently, the leader of the Trump administration's teleprompter wasn't working correctly, which made the leader of the Trump administration very, very upset again when he was already upset from earlier. As it turns out, a member of the entourage of the leader of the Trump administration accidentally pressed the stop button on the escalator. You've been on an escalator, right? You know that there's an emergency stop button. For some reason, it was accidentally pressed by a member of the entourage of the leader of the Trump administration. The teleprompter, as you may have guessed, was also being operated by a member of the entourage of the leader of the Trump administration. So as you see, these two examples of the leader of the Trump administration turning into a 79-year-old big baby were both caused by incompetent people with the leader of the Trump administration. Hey, at least it is times like these that affirm that followers of the leader of the Trump administration really do support children. Personally, I believe this particular child is suffering from cuts to the Department of Education, which ironically were caused by the Trump administration. Day 248 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I am embarrassed. I am humiliated. The leader of the Trump administration has created a presidential walk of fame in the White House, which is surprising because it is unlike him to positively acknowledge the existence of prior presidents, much less that they were famous. But what is not surprising is that instead of a photograph of Joe Biden, he has included a picture of an auto pen because the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration have made the claim that Joe Biden was incapacitated and was signing executive orders with an auto pen, something that the leader of the Trump administration has also used, although he claims it was only for unimportant papers. Maybe birthday cards, perhaps. The auto pen use is not the issue because we know that the leader of the Trump administration has no fidelity to the truth because his fidelity is to saying whatever he has to say or wants to say in order to meet his ends at the time. The issue is the picture in and of itself because it is so embarrassing and it is so humiliating. But maybe not for the reasons that some people might find it embarrassing and humiliating. I was thinking about this and trying to understand for myself why those are the only words I could think of and why I chose them. I don't care what other countries think of the United States. It's not something in my universe of concern moment to moment. I certainly don't care what other people in other countries think of me personally for being an American. I voted for Kamala. The reason it embarrasses me and humiliates me is that it is embarrassing and humiliating to be a human, knowing that people can behave this way, can be so sad, can be so miserable, can be so vindictive that they stoop to the most petty expressions of that sadness, misery, and vindictiveness. It means we are all able to sink that low if we allow ourselves. The only acceptable petty expression is Tom Petty. Knowing that about myself and about human beings in general, knowing that we're capable of being that pathetic is embarrassing. It is humiliating because we walk around with that contained in us. It is a reminder to not sink that low. It is a reminder we should always be striving to be better. It is a reminder that we have a morally bankrupt person leading the nation. It is a reminder to ignore the Trump administration. Day 249 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I am just trying to help myself. I am sick. You can hear it in my voice. I have a cold, or more specifically, a cold is attempting to have me. I am fighting off a cold, but does that mean that I am not here to celebrate what is to be celebrated? That is, we are now, as of today, on day 249, 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, 17%. Yes, 17% through the final term of the leader of the Trump administration. No, it does not stop me. When I feel a cold coming on, which often happens as the seasons change, I douse it with water. I am like the dearly departed arsonist, Lisa Left Eye Lopez, chasing waterfalls. I have found that drinking tons of water is the most effective way for me to stop a cold, because a cold, like the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration, is an attempted invasion in my life, and I put it out like a fire. It is an unwanted presence that tries to debilitate me, that tries to keep me down, that tries to hold me back from what I am trying to accomplish. And so this cold that I am valiantly fighting off, even though you can hear it in my voice, it will not do that to me. Just like the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration will not do that to me. As this cold tries to invade my body, I press that emergency stop button just as if it were a moving escalator. You know what the hell I'm talking about. But seriously, when we have these milestones like 17% of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, I remind myself and you of the main message here. The main message is to pay less attention to the constant incoming news information that only destabilizes us, only undermines our mindfulness, undermines our optimism, and undermines our hope. Use that regained time, use your reclaimed mind to put love into the world and into the lives of the people you care about, including yourself. Do not allow colds to invade your body, and do not allow the words and deeds of corrupt leaders to invade your life. Douse yourself like a lawn in need of irrigation, and ignore the Trump administration.